Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezze, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezze-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the popular 5-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show.
John's special guest today is Kathryn A. Belfance, attorney with Roderick Linton in Belfance. Attorney Belfance began her education at Case Western Reserve University, graduated in 1958, the University of Akron Bachelor of Arts in 1974, and the University of Akron School of Law Juris Doctor in 1977. She was admitted to the Ohio Bar November of 1977, the Florida Bar December of 77, and the Federal District Court February of 1978, United States Court of Appeals January 1986. Her current professional activities and committees include the Federal Court Panel Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee, 1992 to present, Grievance Committee, Akron Bar Association, 1991 to present, Board Member, Akron Bar Association, 2009 to present. Attorney Belfance is highly regarded as an expert in bankruptcy law.
Well, welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
You know, Kate, this is pretty interesting. This never happened before, so we're making history today.
Good.
Within the last 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to have Judge Eve Belfance as my guest. And guess what? Here comes Kate Belfance, Eve's mom. So I've got a mother-daughter guest coming on board, and I think that's pretty cool. So,
well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Well, we're glad you're here. Kate, I asked you to come because all of us in the profession know that when you got a question about bankruptcy, you ask Kate. And I know you've been doing this for quite a few years. So that's what we want to talk about today is bankruptcy.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think I would just love to kick this off with, I know I see it in my practice and I'm sure you see it all the time, is that word bankruptcy has been in all of our lexicons from the time we were children. And albeit I don't know if legally everybody knows what it means, maybe like a lawyer might know what it means, but one thing's for sure, there's a definite negative stigmatism that goes with it. I think that's a fair statement. And consequently, I know with some of my clients, they just don't want to go there. But actually, that's not true, is it?
No, that's not true. Actually, bankruptcy was created by our legislature. And it was created really to assist folks who needed the assistance of bankruptcy.
I see.
And the reality is that most people who have a need to file bankruptcy find that to be so by virtue of either medical issues,
sure,
loss of job, or often divorce. And when they're thrust in a situation where they have an enormous amount of debt and can't seem to get themselves out of it by virtue of any one of those three things, or another reason could be that they decided to invest in a business and then the business didn't work.
It could happen.
And that's the reason that Congress created the bankruptcy system. It's a federal law for the benefit of people and for the benefit of companies. Bankruptcy isn't for everybody. But certainly, I believe certainly in today's climate, with the many foreclosures that we're seeing difficulties with regard to employment issues and medical issues that folks are facing. It is something that is there for the people. And it's something that the people ought to at least explore, along with other things that are out there to assist consumers and assist homeowners in the process. So bankruptcy shouldn't have a negative connotation. As a matter of fact, after people file bankruptcy, they're not permitted to file a bankruptcy for 8 years.
8 years, right.
And after that they have filed, they become pretty much a good credit risk, and they've been able to really get themselves a fresh start.
That's a good point. I mean, you'd almost see that as almost punitive in some ways. You know, well, you can't do it for 8 more years. But it does sort of force a situation where for 8 years you have the opportunity to prove yourself. You can't file it again, and you get a fresh start.
Well, I mean, I think the idea is that we're going to clear out the decks. We're going to get rid of all of the debt for you, and you're going to be able then to, to get your fresh start and proceed to handle your financial affairs probably in a better way than you did before, or at least get rid of the problem that got you into the bankruptcy situation in the first place.
Which, as you say, I mean, what is so common now, we had Judge Kimbler on a show some time ago. We spent the entire show on foreclosures, which runs somewhat hand in hand. Bankruptcy could actually have been some assistance to people who found themselves in that situation. It's my understanding that in certain situations, Kate, you can keep your home.
Oh, there's no question about it. I think that anybody that's facing foreclosure should consult with a bankruptcy lawyer, because there's many things that perhaps can be done. First of all, there is Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. In Chapter 13, one is able to retain their home, pay back the arrearages over a period of time, and proceed to reorganize their affairs. And for many people, that's a wonderful tool. I think today we have to be aware of the fact that our real estate market, I mean, people who purchased a home 10 years ago or 15 years ago had a belief that their home had a particular value, and they
always thought it would keep going up.
They thought it would keep going up, and so what we're finding today is a person that maybe purchased a home for $200,000 finds themselves with a home that has a value of perhaps even $150,000 to $100,000, and so they don't know how to reorganize that debt. Now you've heard there's an ability for some folks to avail themselves of reorganizing their mortgage, and sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But one of the things that people ought to be aware of is if they have a $200,000 mortgage on a $100,000 home, it may very well be, even though there's a loan modification, that's only putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And what may ultimately happen to those folks is, at the end of the day, they may have to file bankruptcy. It may not be immediate, but it may be down the road a piece. So I think that before you get into any of those plans, or before you get into arrangements to repay creditors through some of these counseling services, some of which are really legitimate and some of which are not, you should consult a bankruptcy lawyer to determine what rights you have under the law that could assist you in your particular situation. One of the things another thing I want to mention, we're talking about homes, and we touched on the fact that folks might make an investment in a business, and then the business fails.
Happens a lot.
And most of the time, the bank requires that you sign personally on loans respecting your business. And we're seeing this more and more in our practice. And what a lot of the public doesn't know is that there may be a way through Chapter 13 to strip away the lien that was created by virtue of that mortgage.
I see.
Now, what do I mean by that in ordinary terms? Is that if you have a combination of the perfect storm, which is the decrease in the real estate market, then you also have the loss of a business. And let's go back to my original example of the real estate that's worth $100,000 with a $200,000 mortgage. If that mortgage or a third mortgage or a second mortgage was taken to help in a business or for business purposes, the law permits you under Chapter 13 to strip away that mortgage, which allows the people to keep their home without that additional, let's say, $100,000 on the home. So now you're back to a situation where you have a home with
that's
value.
Really, yeah, it's very interesting because I know a lot of our viewers, and I know through my practice, businesses, it's been tough. And our little town square of Medina, which always bustled 10 years or so I've been around here, we're seeing more storefronts there of businesses that obviously have failed that have been successful before, and it's all for multiple factors. Okay, we'll shift gears. Well, not really shift gears. I mean, I'm just going to try to bring out a few more of the mechanics now, but you made an excellent point here. It's an option that people need to look at, and don't be afraid of the negative stigmatism, because it might be the best thing that can happen to you
Absolutely.
In a crisis situation. But when somebody says, you're going to file bankruptcy, what is, in layperson's mean? What does that mean?
Well, the first thing you ought to do, the first thing that a person should do if they have a situation that is creating financial difficulty for them. I want to mention something before I go into that, and that is that what a lot of people do, John, is before they come to see the lawyer, they have exhausted a lot of their resources, their savings account, their 401k often. They'll borrow from the 401k.
Right.
And what the public should know is that the law provides that your pension is exempt from bankruptcy. In other words, if you file bankruptcy, you don't lose everything.
I see.
There are certain assets that you have that are exempt. And those assets are just a few. I'm going to mention just a few.
Go ahead.
You get $23,250 in a homestead. So if you have a house that has $23,250 in equity, you can file bankruptcy, keep your house.
You can keep that.
And keep that $23,000. That does not, you don't lose that.
Husband and wife would double on it?
Double on it.
Okay.
In addition to that, you have $3,250 in an automobile. So again, you can keep your automobile and not worry about losing it in bankruptcy.
That's pretty generous, actually, because when you buy a car, it tends to depreciate, so you might very well be able to hang on to that.
Exactly. You also can keep some cash value in your life insurance policy if your beneficiaries are your wife or your child.
I see.
And in addition to that, as I mentioned, your pension, your 401k, or any retirement funds. So people, I think, believe that if they file bankruptcy, they're going to lose everything.
Yeah, so I guess the moral of the story, Kate, is if you see it coming before you go expend all your resources, hold back, go see a bankruptcy lawyer, see what we could preserve out of this.
Well, yes, I think you have to consult with the expert to determine, is this the right thing for me? And it's not the right thing for everybody, but certainly it could be the right thing for you. And back to your original question.
Yeah, when you file, what does it mean?
What happens? Well, first of all, you consult with your attorney.
Go see your attorney.
And the attorney then will give you will request from you certain financial information.
Yeah.
And that information then is analyzed by the attorney, and then papers are prepared that are made ready for filing. And basically the papers are designed to provide anybody looking at those filings to be informed as to your financial situation and your statement of financial affairs.
I see.
As well as what have you done for the last couple of years, what do you owe presently, what kind of taxes are owed, if any, and so forth.
So when you go through the filing process, Kate, and it's nothing to be scared of, but one of the things that probably would be pretty helpful is that if people tend to keep their receipts and whatnot in the shoebox, so to speak, but it's really important that you've got a good handle on where your resources are, who you owe. This is all, what I think I hear you saying is, as a bankruptcy expert yourself, you're going to look at all of that even as part of your decision to tell your